Heirloom of lies, the will that burned a family. When old patriarch Richard Nolan died, his will became a live grenade. The Nolan estate, a creaking countryside mansion, a row of small businesses, and a secret safe whose combination only he knew had been a battlefield for years. His 3 children arrived like stranded soldiers. Andrew, the eldest and a stiff-jawed banker. Natalie, the middle child, sharp as a courtroom blade. Samantha, the youngest, who had spent 5 years abroad and returned with a suitcase full of doubts. The funeral was polite. The reading of the will was war. Attorney Ellen Morris, silver-haired and unblinking, opened the envelope. The first clause handed the mansion and the businesses to Andrew if he kept running them. The second granted Natalie a large sum to start a nonprofit of her choosing. The third clause was the one that yanked the air out of the room. To Samantha Nolan, who loved Blue Jays in the summer of '94. I leave the safe and all within, provided she proves within 60 days that she is my biological daughter, and that she can open the safe on her own. Fail, and its contents will be sold and split among all heirs. A stunned silence. A single inhale. Then chaos. Andrew stiffened. Natalie's lawyer instincts sharpened. Samantha went pale. Her father had always loved tests, cruel ones. This was his final masterpiece. Samantha had never done a DNA test. She had left home in anger, not confusion. Now the family home felt like a trial. The first twist. Andrew pulled out an old photograph. Richard holding a baby wrapped in a blanket with a tiny silver bracelet, Samantha's. "See," he said, "he loved you, he was your father." But Samantha noticed something off, a smudge near the corner. Almost like the photo had been handled too deliberately. Natalie narrowed her eyes. Evidence could lie. But rules were rules. Samantha agreed to the DNA test. They collected samples under Ellen's watchful stare. The results hit like a hammer. Samantha was not Richard's biological daughter. The safe no longer belonged to her by blood. Her heart cracked. But fate wasn't finished. The second twist, a hidden letter. On the 47th day, Natalie discovered a sealed envelope inside Richard's favorite coat. Written in his unmistakable handwriting. "If blood won't bind you, remember who we were before lies became our language." Inside was a single name. Linda Abbott, the midwife who registered births in 1994. Natalie tracked her down. Linda was elderly now, surrounded by books and candles. She remembered something. A couple, a silver bracelet, a baby that arrived too early. A second baby who struggled. "There was a flood," Linda said softly. "Records washed away, but wait." She pulled out an old ledger, half-burned, barely legible, with a faded receipt number that matched numbers printed on Richard's old stock certificates. Natalie's stomach dropped. This wasn't proof. It was the beginning of a confession. The third twist, a father's sin. Digging deeper, Natalie uncovered 2 letters between Richard and a childhood friend who became a doctor. The letters revealed a secret that would fracture the family all over again. In 1994, twins had been born. One healthy, one frail. Richard, terrified the sick baby would burden the family, gave the frail one to an adoptive couple. The adoptive couple later died in an accident. The surviving child returned years later, never knowing the truth. That child was Samantha. So the DNA test was right, biologically. But emotionally, historically, spiritually, Richard had known Samantha wasn't his by blood. But he had chosen her. The safe wasn't about DNA at all. It was about whether someone could uncover the truth he'd been too cowardly to say. The fourth twist, Andrew's crime. The family pressed Andrew. Finally, he snapped. He hadn't forged the photo, but he had bribed the lab technician to tilt the DNA results against Samantha. He wanted the safe. He wanted the money. And he thought Samantha, the outsider, was the easiest to cut out. His crime sent shockwaves. Charges followed. The Nolan reputation collapsed like wet plaster. Samantha, suddenly both orphaned and vindicated, found herself in the center of a storm she never asked for. The final twist, the codicil. Ellen returned with a final sealed document. A codicil Richard had written shortly before his death. If the safe is not opened by blood or by combination, let it be opened by the child who knows why I bought the Nolan bookstore. Tell the story fully, and the safe is yours. The bookstore, a dusty place Richard visited daily, held answers Samantha never sought. She spent nights interviewing neighbors, reading old receipts, unraveling the story of Richard's guilt, his fear, the lost twin, and the desperate way he tried to honor a child he abandoned. On day 72, Samantha stood before the judge and told the entire truth, from the twin birth to the bookstore Richard bought as a way to cope, to the photograph that wasn't staged but repeated, to the secret he hoped someone would unearth after he was gone. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Not because they doubted her, but because they recognized the story Richard wanted told. The safe opens. The safe was opened privately. Inside, old stock certificates, coins saved over decades, a small wooden box. Inside the box was the original, unaltered baby faux, the tiny silver bracelet, and a note. To the child who listens. Blood never chose you, but I did. Tears blurred Samantha's vision. The safe was awarded to her, not by DNA, but by truth. Andrew faced charges. Natalie rebuilt her relationship with Samantha piece by fragile piece. The Nolan businesses were reorganized under transparent management. Samantha reopened the bookstore and renamed it Heirloom and Ashes, where every object has a story and every story has a truth. In the front display case, she placed the bracelet. Its plaque read, "For the child who listened," and the father who spoke too late.